Hey guys, this is Mark Goldberg from Mark Vlogs Watches. Thank you for joining me in another exciting episode. Well, today is September 1st, 2020, and yesterday Rolex announced all kinds of new stuff. But today we're going to be talking primarily about what happened to the Rolex Submariner, which is probably the icon and the flagship of the line anyway. So first, let me get a quick fistwatch check out of the way, and here it is. Today, I am wearing yesterday's news. I'm wearing old, dirty underwear. I'm wearing a Rolex first generation ceramic Submariner in the SuperCase. Now, all kinds of new stuff has happened. So the first thing that we have to be aware of is that Rolex has premiered this is a 40 millimeter watch, okay, with wide lugs, as you can see here at the bottom. Sorry, a little hard to manipulate the camera, wide here, and that gives it like a big fat juicy stance on the wrist, which means that for a 40 millimeter watch, it occupies a lot of eye space, wrist territory, gives an awful lot of wrist presence on the one hand. On the other hand, if you were to compare this lug profile to the 5-digit references when the bezel was not ceramic, but when it was aluminum, the lugs are not elegant. They're kind of squat, square, brawny. They're not as artistic as what they used to be. And this caused massive complaining over the years from Rolex fanboys such as myself. I think personally I'm an exception. I always liked the SuperCase because it came with the maxi dial, which means these giant hour markers and big hands and extra lume. And my eyes can read this compared to like the older 5-digit subs, which I struggle with. So I don't know. I'm very happy with this, but newer is better, right? And bigger is better. And Rolex has finally introduced a 41 millimeter. Now that makes it, starting to tuck up into Omega Seamaster territory, which is a 42 millimeter watch. But I digress. Back to Rolex. The question I have is this watch now dead in the water? Is it yesterday's news? Is it sort of like those leftovers that you peek into the fridge and you open up and you go, I could still eat this, but only for about another day or so. And do I really want to? Because it's a little crusty around the edges. Because I think that over the next 6 months, or so, that's how this watch will be perceived. And why? Because, look, first, let's stipulate, we are not normal people. We are the watch disadvantaged. We are, we are not well. Is this a hobby or is it an illness? Well, I think it's 80% illness, 20% hobby. We're not right, okay? So the average Rolex buyer is going to look at it and they won't tell the difference. They'll be like, yeah, give me the one that's in the case if they can even get that, right? That's another whole issue, the supply of these things. But I think that we, the fanboys, the people who analyze every detail, well, I mean, honestly, didn't we find the addition of 1 millimeter to a Rolex Submariner to be staggering, to be earth-shattering news? Wasn't that like a 7.0 on the Richter scale of Rolex earthquake news? If I tell any of my not watch friends, if I tell any of my normal friends, hey guys, you're never going to believe this. You're never going to believe what happened. It's unbelievable. It's completely nuts. Cell phone, let me make it stop. It's unbelievable. Let me tell you what's happening here. They added a millimeter to the Rolex Submariner. Can you believe that? My friends would be like, a millimeter? Like, who cares? We don't, yeah. Guys, I understand that we're not right. So this kind of stuff is important news to us, to the average person. It's stupid, okay? But, this is the world that we live in. OCD, in an OCD world, okay? Let me take this off. In an OCD world, let me show you something, guys. I can prove it. Okay, well, with these camera angles, it's very hard to tell, right? But the bezel is lined up there. Let me look. Oh no, it's off. My bezel is off one click, which is why I'm looking at it on camera, and it just doesn't look right. Now that I know that, it bothers me. If I were to strap this watch back on and just go about my day, and I know that I was one click off, I would have a bad day. It'd be like getting up on the wrong side of the bed. Okay, doesn't that look like 1,000 times better? There's something wrong with us. So that 1 millimeter change to that bezel position, it's ensuring that I'm going to have a good day. And you as well. Remember, people, I do it for you. Here's the point of this video, though, I suppose. At the end of the day, we are like crows, okay? We want what's shiny. We want what's new. Now, This is not new anymore. Even if you bought it 2 months ago, if you were lucky enough to get one out of your AD, 2 months ago, because supply is tough of this stuff. They say that Rolex steel has 10% real unobtainium mixed into it. At least that's what the rancher says. So these have been, traditionally very hard to get, but now they're old and discontinued and obsoleted. The new ones are a millimeter bigger, and those lugs that we were talking about earlier have been reconfigured and they are slimmer. They have a waistline. They're definitively more elegant, right? So the question becomes, how will we perceive this? Will all of us want to get rid of these and get the new one? Will all of us want to shelve these and just save them in case they become valuable later on? Well, I want to give you my preliminary thoughts on this topic. I'm sure things will develop as time goes on. But the first thing I want to say is, yes, there will be a quick drive to buy the new one. The new one will be all the rage. And have I spoken to my authorized dealer? Beg, pleaded. Yes, I have. And so I'm definitely, I definitely, what I would like to get would be the Kermit 2.0, which is the new ceramic sub in stainless steel, black dial, green bezel. I would really like to have that so that I have a new ceramic sub, and it will be the slightly harder to get one, I should think, or maybe very hard to get one. But what I think is this is likely to take a quick dip because a lot of people are going to want the new one. A lot of people are going to dump out of this watch. And when they dump out of this watch, if tons of them flood the market, well, law of supply and demand, Keynesian economics, you don't really need a master's degree to understand that if the market floods with black yesterday's news, Submariners and ceramic, that the price is going to go down a little bit. That being said, I'm not selling. And the reason that I'm not selling is yesterday's news in Rolex is tomorrow's classic. It's a future classic. You really have to wait until you get a full few years of obsolescence built into a watch before it becomes, I don't know, juicy, exciting, scintillating, bright, till it catches the eye, till it's a bright, shiny object once again to the collector crow that is our community here. Now, this watch has been around a very long time, and there are plenty of them out there. Supply clamped down hardcore in about the last 3 years, but prior to that, there were plenty of them out there. So there's a lot of this watch out there, and what I don't expect to happen is anytime in the next 5 years for this to become, a $15,000, $16,000, $17,000 watch. No, I don't think it's going to hit like Batman level territory because I think there's just plenty of them out there on the one hand. On the other hand, they've been trading on the used market at retail or even a smidgen above retail. Why? Well, because the supply of them, has gone down, right? So there are plenty of them out there, but Rolex clamped down and just made them hard to get now. So guys, if you have one of these and you want to use it to fund a new one, I wouldn't do it. Honestly, I would just enjoy your now discontinued future classic watch and understand you may feel vastly differently about this in 6 months to a year. So if you are tempted to sell your first generation, I don't even know what we're going to call it, old ceramic, new ceramic, first gen, second gen, we don't even have names for this, 40 millimeter sub, 41 millimeter sub. We don't have the lingo. We don't have the terminology, even established for all of this stuff yet. But it'll emerge. And what I would say is the market is going to fluctuate a whole lot in probably the next 6 to 8 months. And then it'll settle in, right? This will settle in at a particular price. It may, during that 6 month period, it may be a little bit like this. And if you happen to, want to sell and you catch it at a peak, that's fine. But I think after a 6 month period of that, it'll just slowly do this over a period of time. Really, the money isn't even the biggest issue. It's not about the money. It's about the passion, right, guys? It takes a lot of money to get this equipment together. So the concept really isn't what's it worth. The real question to ask yourself is, what's it worth to you? Is this a good, steady, serviceable watch that you can enjoy for a lifetime, pass on to your kids? Yeah, it is. So I don't know. I'm in no rush to sell this. Now, here's the funny thing. As I sound like a watch guru who has reached the peak of enlightenment in watches. Be happy with what you have, and that sort of message. Lest I sound like the Dalai Lama right now, I have a confession to make. Okay, and here's the confession. I would have sold this. I would have sold this 6 months ago, just to raise money to put into the new stuff. And now that it's discontinued and it won't be so easy for me to replace, especially not for what I paid for it, which I'll tell you about in a second. Now that it's discontinued, there's that little air of exclusivity that's also tinged with, the air of leftover smell, in the fridge. It's a mixture of those things, at least at this moment. But now that there's that air of, I can't get one, I want one, and I got one, and I'm going to keep it. Now, I also have a Hulk. That watch went completely nuts, as I predicted it would. I told you people 3 or 4 months ago, I made videos for you saying, if you want a Hulk, buy it right now. And that was because the Hulk was trading at about $13,500 a few months ago. It was the calm before the storm. And now the storm has hit. It was discontinued, and it's popping up to, 18 to 22. Now, that's a newly discontinued watch also. So it's gonna jump around very wildly until it settles in at a price point and then slowly rises or holds or dips. But it'll find its level, and it hasn't done that yet. But that's a watch that I wouldn't sell. I don't want to sell. I love that watch, the Hulk. I mean, I like this watch a great deal. The Hulk, I love, even though it's a divisive watch. It's a Marmite watch, as the Brits would say, because not, it's a love it or hate it watch. And I think more people hate it than love it, which, by the way, in my opinion, explains why they discontinued it and have come out with a Kermit. Mind you, the Hulk was around for, I want to say, a 10-year period. And this guy here for, I think, around the same, around 10 years. But they've come out with the Kermit 2.0, which is to say 41 millimeter, black dial, ceramic Submariner with a green bezel. And I can't tell 100% sure, but it looks to me to be the same green as the green on the bezel of the Hulk. And depending on what happens with the light, determines whether or not you can kind of appreciate the color or whether it kind of fades into black. So it's a little bit more serviceable. It's got a flash or a pop, especially in brilliant sunlight, a pop of a brilliant color. But under most lights, especially like indoor fluorescent lighting, I think it's a fairly conservative watch. Now, there are a lot of people who say that the SuperCase was a failure and that Rolex had to admit defeat and take their ball and crawl away into their little cave. But I disagree with that. That SuperCase was around for 10 years, and it's on an awful lot of watches. It was on the Submariner and all its versions: gold, two-tone, white gold, yellow gold. It was on all versions of the Submariner for like 10 years, and also for a very long time on all the GMTs. Like my Batman has that identical case. Rolex evolves, they shift, they move. Now they tend to do so glacially slow, but with global warming, the glaciers are moving a little bit quicker, than they used to, and so is Rolex. But I don't think you can say that they made a mistake. We all bought them, okay, or a lot of people did. And but what happens is the times change, and look, humanity is getting bigger. I mean, people are getting larger. I was one of the tallest kids in my class. And, from my era, and, the average 16-year-old boy is taller than me now. So I think people are, it's the hormones in the chicken, as Archie Luxury likes to say. People are getting bigger. And I think that Rolex is slowly responding to that. And what they've done is they've added some elegance back into the lugs and a little bit of extra size. Because the lugs are a little bit narrower, I don't think that 41 millimeter is going to wear a whole lot larger than this. I think it's just going to look like, to the eye, slightly more elegant, and it'll be hard to tell why. But would I like to get one? Yes. Am I on the list for one? Yes. Will it happen? I hope so. But in the meantime, I'm not selling this, and I advise you not to do anything hasty. Don't sell a watch out of boredom. Don't trade in a car just because there's a new model year and they changed the sheet metal a little. Is that thing getting you from A to B? Is it good? Do you like it? Do you look at your car? Well, it's not a great analogy, the car thing. But when I look at this watch, I still say, wow, this is a beautiful thing. Now, I promised I would tell you what what I paid for it. Before I conclude, I bought this on eBay using my spider to the fly method. And that is what I look for on eBay are collectors or pawn shops or, sellers who are just dumping out. Because you don't know, some seller or like some pawn shop might have paid $6 for this. So they sell it for $7,900 and they're happy because they got their money out of it. You just never know. And what did I pay? $8,500 box and papers 1 year ago, only 1 year ago. So I did very well with this thing and I like it. I'm happy. The new one, by the way, this is a 20 millimeter bracelet tapering down to, I think, 20 to 18, if I recall correctly. And if I'm wrong, talk to me in the comments about that. And the new one is going to have a 21 millimeter tapering down to what? I don't know, 19, 18. So they've widened the bracelet out it's barely going to be detectable to the eye, but it'll be a little bit more metal in the bracelet. Guys, if you enjoyed this video, please hit the like for me. Thank you so much for being with me. If you were in the comments, the peanut gallery during the live stream, I want to thank you as well for being here. Ladies and gentlemen, please please subscribe so we can do this again. 2020, what a nutball year that we are having with our watch collections, let alone with survival and everything else. So if you're enjoying the conversation, let's do this again together, but you got to subscribe to make it happen. Guys, thank you for being with me.